Welcome to another episode of Home Sweet Home. My name is Rod McCall.
And I'm Scott Nichols.
Happy Monday.
Yeah.
Or as I tell my kids, Monday is fun day.
Yeah.
And they respond exactly.
That's exactly what Monday is. You know that song, Monday, Monday. No, Monday's great, right?
I thought it was Bloody Sunday.
No.
No?
We'll stay away from that.
Okay.
Right. No, I mean, Monday is a new opportunity, right?
Every day is a new opportunity. And Mondays, I think they get a bad rap for being the first day of the work week.
Sure.
But, in different cultures, their first day of the work week is sometimes Sunday.
Yeah.
And they work Sunday through Thursday, and their weekends are Fridays and Saturdays.
Sure.
So, I don't know. Maybe it's just our biased culture. Or maybe it's the fact that we worry about all kinds of things.
Oh my goodness, right? Like we worry about all sorts of stuff, right? You worry on Sunday night about Monday morning. I saw a meme that said, for business people, right? Like, about what your culture is at work.
Yeah.
Right? Your culture at work is can be defined by how people feel on Sunday night.
Yes.
About Monday morning.
Yeah, I saw that.
Right. So, I mean, but we don't need to worry.
Well,
like stuff's going to happen every day.
We
just need to know how to get through it.
I like the song, Don't Worry, Be Happy.
Yeah, which you can do in Jamaica, right?
Yes. Well, I won't try and sing it. So I thought today, maybe if you're all right with this.
I'm always all right with it.
Well, thank you. I thought we would talk about a particular blog I saw. And it's basically why we worry and what we can do to actually worry less. So I found that now I apologize. My ability to identify names, if you're not Smith or Jones, I have run a risk. So, but anyway, there was the guy that wrote this particular one. His name is Dr. Tomislav Zabosnik.
I think you did a great job there.
Well, thank you. I hope I didn't butcher his name. But he is a California-based licensed clinical psychologist, and he is the associate director of UCLA's Anxiety and Depression Research Center. And so as I read through this guy's bona fides, I thought, okay, this guy is, he's got a PhD in clinical psychology. And so he might know a little bit about what he's talking about. And he says that a lot of times we worry too much, and we worry about things that don't need to be, worried about. In fact, he says worry is a perseverative, unpleasant, time-consuming, effortful, and inefficient use of our time.
Sure.
Now, there was a word in there I did not know.
Yeah.
And I had to look it up. It was perseverative. In fact, I had to practice in that quite a few times so I would get it right. So I look it up, and God bless Google. So I look it up, and it says perseveration refers to a tendency to continue or repeat thoughts, actions, or behaviors despite their lack of appropriateness or effectiveness. In essence, it's basically getting stuck on a particular idea, topic, or response, even when there is no evidence to support it or when it's past time to move on.
So in my layman's terms here, like this sounds to me like a super bad habit.
Can be.
Right. Like that's possible, right? I just keep doing something or thinking something that is not true or not valuable to me. But I keep doing it. Why do I keep doing it? I mean, that's a good question, right?
You're there you go. There you go. And, one of the things that he throws out there at the beginning of this article is that people who worry believe that worrying will protect them from potential future problems. And it's kind of like, no, you can worry to the point of creating maybe even self-fulfilling prophecies.
Yeah.
And that usually doesn't happen because most of the time what we worry about doesn't come true, or if it does, it's nowhere near as bad as what we kind of imagined in our head. It's coming. I worry and stress about a lot of things, and then after it's all done, when I had to take my state certification test,
Right.
I can't tell you, well, yes, I can tell you, July, August, September, and October, stressing and worrying about and studying for that silly thing.
Mm-hmm.
And was it tough? Heavens, yes.
Right.
But I passed. And when it was, okay, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times we do worry too much.
We do. I mean, we worry about things that are never even going to happen.
Outside our control.
Right. I mean, you worry about, I mean, you get it. It's just, it's better to consider, the thing after it comes along rather than worry about all the possibilities, right? That can be overwhelming. What's interesting to me about this as a history guy.
Yeah.
Right. And I read a lot of history, but, as a history guy, you look back and you think about, the human race and like, we're just not all that different now than we were 2,000 years ago or 5,000 years ago. Right.
Mm-mm.
I mean, there are whole religions and, I mean, the one that comes to mind immediately is from, the Bible, right? Where Jesus is saying, don't worry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, it's like you're like spreading seeds on thorns, kind of thing. Whereas in Buddhism, they do some things for mindfulness. There's Taoism that's talking about, or Taoism that's talking about, controlling yourself and your thoughts and all that. I mean, there's all these religions deal with worry.
Mm-hmm.
Like worry is a thing that everybody's been doing. So like when we act like, well, we're anxious or we're worried about something, it's not like it's new. It's not because social media is around. It's not because we're busy or anything.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everybody throughout all of history has had this problem.
It's about how much we allow it to control ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
They put a quote in here from a French philosopher named Michel de Montaigne. And he the French philosopher describes his own anxiety and worry.
Right.
And he says, my life has been full of terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I again, it piggybacks on what you were just saying. Throughout humankind, we worry about all kinds of things. And I'm reminded of Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Yeah.
And there's things that we got to make sure we take care of.
Sure.
But sometimes, we can get caught in the weeds of worry about things that, well, what if I got to do that? Well, but what if they do this? Or what if I do this and then they say that and then I respond and then they do? And, you could go off on a tangent down a rabbit hole, however you want to say that, on things. And it's kind of like, well, why don't we try it first?
Well, and it can become especially problematic because we can worry about things that we think might happen, and that actually it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like
mm-hmm.
the fact that we worry about it will prevent us from moving forward into the thing that we should have been doing, but now we're not, and we make that worry actually kind of come true. So, I mean, we can prevent ourselves from having successes and having things because we worry about stuff. I mean, it's just
yes, and it's pervasive. And they're saying here they published some results of a study that was done in 2020, and it was saying that the average person has 34 very distinct worries in a 10-day period, and of those 34,
I guess I'm way above average.
Congratulations, you're above average. But it was saying that of these 34 very distinct worries, almost 92% did not come true within a 30-day period.
That's amazing.
And that's the average. And if you're above average, well, congratulations. That means even fewer of your worries come true.
So basically, we spend a lot of our brain power and time imagining possibilities of things that might happen that could be bad for us, instead of focusing on the good things and having a set goal to work towards.
Yeah, pretty much.
Kind of what you're saying.
And one of the things that this study came out with was that even if some of these things did come true, 30% of the worries were actually better than what they expected. So not only did they not happen the way they thought, they came out on a better end of things. So 30%, that's almost a third of the worries that we had the results were not just not negative, they were improved.
Sure.
So we worried about the wrong thing for the wrong reasons. And so, I mean, because it's just, I don't know, these ideas of feared outcomes can be super destructive. It can prevent us from doing things, from from talking, from acting, from going and doing stuff. It can be paralyzing.
Wow.
And that's what
it's powerful.
Well, yeah. And as I was reading through this, I'm going, holy smokes. And so I kind of thought, okay, well, why do we worry? And a lot of times, well, we worry because, well, we're kind of afraid. And when we're worried, what if I do this? Well, what if I say the wrong thing? What if, I really like them, but they don't like me the same way? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. But It takes courage. And a lot of times we're afraid to try. And so anyway, and a lot of times what they're saying here too is that our fears, our worry sometimes is based on bias. And sometimes our bias predictions of what we think might happen then can influence us in what we don't do.
Right.
So anyway, I just thought
what I thought was interesting was he talked in the thinking about why we worry. A lot of the worry is what they would call positive beliefs, right? That there's a belief, like you believe that your worrying is actually going to help you.
Yes.
And it actually doesn't help you, right? It doesn't, thinking about it, dwelling on it, worrying about the problem doesn't actually result in a positive outcome necessarily.
I'm worried about letting my kid, if I don't supervise them 24/7 when they're outside playing or when they're at the playground or something of that sort, that something exceptionally horrible, they're going to get kidnapped. They're going to hurt and, break major bones or they might even die. And so I have to watch them. I can't let them out of my sight. You can ride your bike outside, but don't ride in the street. Well, I go back to you and I growing up, and crying out loud, my mom would say, like during the summertime or on a Saturday, go outside and play. Yeah. And we would be, after we got done with chores or whatever we were supposed to do, then boom, you're booted out of the house. Go. And my mom didn't pay attention and watch us 24/7. And the idea was go out and, we'd ride bikes for miles.
Right.
I don't know how many parents allow their children to do that because why? They're worried something bad might happen.
Our generation was, when the streetlights come on, you better be home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, but that, and admittedly, right, we live in somewhat of a different world, in some cases, and depending on the neighborhood you lived in and those kind of things. But, still, at some point you have to provide that freedom to your children, and you may still worry. But when everything comes out okay, maybe you'll just worry less.
Well, and a lot of times these negative beliefs that we worried about we worry about things that we can't control. And they're unpleasant. They could be harmful, but they're outside our control. So we try and control that which we cannot control, which creates more worry.
Right.
And so I don't know. Part of this whole idea of worry, though, also leads us to avoidance. And our inability to go and deal with whatever it might be. And so we're afraid. We're afraid to try. I hate my job, but I'm afraid to get something new because it might be worse. Okay, but it might be better.
I'm not ready for the test, so I'm not going to school today.
Exactly. It's kind of like, well, why aren't you ready for the test?
Right.
Then that requires a few more questions, but you're right. We worry, we avoid. Well,
but the bottom line is, like, in that case, right? Like, are you really going to be ready for the test tomorrow?
No.
Right. Is staying home today going to solve the problem and make you ready for the test tomorrow? Probably not. And so sometimes you just need to face it.
Well, yeah, because as we do this worry, as you and I worry about things that are, again, beyond our control, it creates all kinds of negative responses. All right. It reduces our physical feelings. It creates, stomach issues, nausea. But again, it also increases our feelings of fear and further pushes our anxiety levels higher and higher, which is, again, creates all kinds of negative physiological headaches, migraines, stuff like that. So
that's all very interesting stuff, right? I mean, I read a book recently called The Body Keeps the Score, right?
Yes, I'm reading that now.
Such a great book, right? And it talks about a lot about how just those kinds of things, right, manifest themselves in your body. And, it's just crazy how your body stores all that stuff, right? So that's a great book. The Body Keeps the Score. Bessel van der Kolk. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk.
Yeah, he's Dutch.
So, I mean, fabulous book.
Again, I'm in the middle of reading it not literally as we speak. We're talking as we speak.
Right.
I am reading it. But one of the things that I liked about this article, again, more research that was provided, a 2021 study said that elevated anxiety is often associated with excessive avoidance far in advance of any potential danger that could come. And again, we avoid. Some things maybe you need to avoid. A rough part of town, a negative coworker. But maybe how many times, I got to say, I'm not a good person at confrontation.
No,
and
most people aren't.
And I try to avoid confrontation when a lot of times I might, and I fear.
Do you worry about confrontation?
I worry about it. Yeah, a confrontation with this person, with a student that's acting up, or a parent, or the negative consequences with an administrator as a result. These things worry because I worry about, what's this conversation going to be like?
Sure.
And I will admit that I do. And a lot of times I can avoid. I mean, that was one of the things that contributed to my divorce was avoidance. And I would run through scenarios of conversations in my head, conversations that did not happen. And as a result of these failures on my part to address some of my early concerns, they just actually manifested, grew, and led to the divorce. Had I potentially addressed these things when they were smaller, may have not led to my divorce. So I don't know. Again, as it said at the very beginning, many of the times the things that we worry about are over exaggerated and are never or are rarely as bad as what we think they will be. And so the idea is let's go ahead and tackle them. And because again, as we choose to avoid them, the worry gets worse. It takes up a lot of our time,
sure,
our efforts, and it takes an emotional toll on us. And so I don't know. I'm a firm believer that address it. I mean, Sherry and I, a lot of times, we now talk about an issue. I don't let it just fester.
Right.
And it might take me a day or two to kind of calm down. And I'll think about, okay, what would be a good way to approach the subject? And I'll wait till my emotions have kind of calmed down and I'm a little more level-headed. Again, the book you were just talking about talks about when we are very emotional, a lot of times our left brain shuts down.
Yeah.
And our ability to communicate is greatly reduced because our ability for rational communication is on our left brain.
Mm-hmm.
So if you take calm down, relax, and take a few deep breaths. And now let's think about, because one of the things that they suggest here is actually problem solving. How can we solve the problem? And so as a result, I think if you're able to push past the fear, push past the anxiety, and start thinking, okay, I want to deal with this. I want to address it. Let's head this thing off at the pass, so to speak, so that way the worry doesn't become debilitating.
Yeah.
I don't know. Have you ever tried anything like that?
So a common problem that people have in marriages, right, and something that they often worry about is money.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. And so you worry about money. Maybe you don't have enough money, right? Maybe you're hitting the overdraw on your checkbook.
Yeah.
And people worry about that because, the rent's coming due, or I got to buy food this week, and where's that going to come from, and how am I going to do, So there's a couple things there, right? Like you definitely need to problem solve for the now.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
So somehow you have to get some more money, and it might be humbling yourself and saying, hey, mom, dad, friend, whatever, like I just need $100. I'm struggling, right?
I made a mistake.
Group, whatever, like I made a mistake. And then there's the second part of that is heading it off for the future, right? Dealing with the future negative outcomes. Okay, so now how am I going to change my situation, right? Maybe I overspend, right? Because, my wife and I have been talking about Amazon.
Okay.
Everybody has an Amazon box at their door all the time.
Yeah.
We buy Amazon. We were wondering if Amazon itself has contributed to a greater debt in the United States because it's so easy, right, to order.
Sure.
And they push things out to you. Like if you have Alexa, it's like, hey, here's a suggestion, something you want to buy, right? Like, I mean, you get those things, right?
Okay.
So they're pushing it out to you all the time. It's like the store showing up at your house and taunting you with, hey, here's something you should buy.
I hadn't thought about it that way.
If you are a spender, and you don't have the control over your spending is very good, then you can easily end up in that first situation I told you about, where
sure,
I don't have enough money to buy my groceries this week.
Sure,
because I bought too many things on Amazon. The lucky thing is Amazon has a great return policy. Just send it back and get your credit.
There you go.
Right?
There you go.
Like, but you have that future, right? Like where you need to get control of your financial planning, and doing that can really help you.
Well, and that's where that kind of pushes on to what they're saying, that if we can find a way to solve our problems, problem solving is the top way to address worry.
Yeah.
Take it from a hypothetical to a practical. And in fact, it says here, problem solving is much more time and effort bound as well as effective in addressing our worries.
Yep.
And a lot of times when we worry, we'll kind of maybe, not only will we worry in our head and go down rabbit holes, we might even research. Well, if you can take that research into possible potential negative outcomes, why don't we look for potential successful outcomes? Let's face the elephant in the room, so to speak. What is the problem? Okay, instead of dreadful worry, let's take a solution approach to this. In fact, one of the things that in my becoming a professional counselor, a lot of folks ask, well, what is your primary theoretical approach? And I'm going, well, I want to help you solve whatever your problem is. Yeah. Solution focused. And there might be a lot of different ways to get there, but our goal is to help you solve your problem. And so if we take this solution approach, then we can figure out, okay, let's map out what we can do. What are our options?
Sure.
And let's, take the time, effort, and energy, and let's redirect it from worrying about things that probably won't happen to solutions to fix it. You're talking about money, and you're worried about talking to your spouse, significant other, your parents about, well, I had some money, I made a few bad decisions, and so own it.
Right.
Own it and address it and have a conversation, because that conversation actually, there might be a little bit of hostility on the other end, maybe some yelling, maybe some screaming, but at the end of the day, you get through it and you then have a plan.
Right.
So
I think that, having some goals helps, right? So especially if you are worrying about a particular topic like finances.
Yeah.
Having a broad goal of like, I'm going to get healthy in my finances.
Okay.
And then that way you have a focus of like, so what can I do today to be healthy in my finances? Maybe it's, for one day, I'm not going to order anything. I'm not going to order lunch. I'm not going to order from online. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do these things, right? Just for one day and see how you feel at the end of the day, right? It'll probably feel good. Hey, I accomplished. I didn't spend extra money today that I didn't need to spend. Right. Mm-hmm. And I had a healthy lunch and whatever. For the past 4 years, I have operated in my life on 3 goals.
Okay.
And I'm not typically a goals oriented person, right? Like we had a whole thing on like resolutions.
Yeah.
I don't care for them. I don't feel like they work very well for me.
Okay.
Because it's easy to ignore them, and I often like, oh, squirrel, right?
Yeah.
So, but I've had 3 very broad goals, right?
Okay.
And the overarching goal of that is health. Underneath that, I would place finances, right? So health and finances.
Okay.
Health in physical, my body, and health in mind or spirituality.
Okay.
And that's kind of what I focused on for 4 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Have I achieved it? I'm by no means a thin minister who's rich, right? I haven't gotten there, right? And that's not necessarily where I want to be.
Sure.
Right. I mean, I definitely want to be healthy at a healthy weight.
Okay.
Right? I want to eat healthy. I want to feel good. I want those things. I want to have my finances be, in better order, every year.
Okay.
Than what they were. But that means they need to be in better order tomorrow than they were today, right? Like I need to take small steps back to that Atomic Habits idea, right?
Oh, sure.
And it takes small steps. And so I've been working on it for 4 years, right? And I feel like I've made a lot of progress. I feel good about it.
And that's,
but you have to like have some kind of a goal and then say, well, what's like one thing that I can do to work towards that goal? And then once you master that, what's another thing?
Well, and that's, I love that. I love it. That is fantastic. And that ties right in with what Dr. Zabosnik says here towards the end of his posting. And he says, how do I stop worrying so much? And he has a few steps. And he says, basically, 1, know what's the difference between worry and problem solving. Yeah. And if you can go, well, I'm worried, but my worry is I'm trying to solve the problem. Second, a little bit of mindfulness. I mean, we've talked about this in the past.
Absolutely.
But mindfulness allows us to kind of contemplate, think about, and do it in a non-judgmental way. Look, accept what it is.
Yeah.
And, you can forget about blame. All right. Just accept what is, and let's work through the blame, and boom, let's solve it. All right. Third, he talks about how our thoughts, well, it ties in with cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT. Mm-hmm. And he says worries are thoughts, and thoughts may or may not be accurate, and they may or may not come true. So by the idea of understanding which of our thoughts, what is the direction of these thoughts?
Yeah.
Are these constructive or destructive? If they're destructive, then that's the negative side of worry. If they're constructive, then, okay, we're working towards a solution.
Right.
All right. And then he says shift from worrying to problem solving to engaging. Mm-hmm. Begin putting that plan into action so that way you can now actually solve the thing that is causing you to worry so much.
Yeah. Now, I don't claim to know all the things, right? I mean,
no.
That's why I read books like we talked about.
Yeah.
Right? And it, actually, for me, right, like my physical health and my spiritual health, right, for me means reading books. Mm-hmm. And I have never been an avid reader. Last year, I read 40 books. Wow. That was like a huge step for me, right? And
fantastic.
I'm working towards at least hitting that same number this year. Maybe more. Mm-hmm. Right. I love reading. One of the books that I read is called, The Pursuit of Happiness, because I'm a government teacher. Mm-hmm. And it's by Jeffrey Rosen. And that book, he looks at what the founders of the United States believed about the pursuit of happiness. And we all think, it's about money or whatever, right? It's really about control of your mind, control of yourself.
Yes.
And they believed that the way to do that was by studying the classic writers, right? Socrates, different people like
Homer.
that.
Yeah.
And so understanding those things and controlling your mind, because again, none of this anxiety is new. None of this worry is new. Like everybody has it. So, I mean, Thomas Jefferson died in debt.
Yeah. Big time.
It's not like these are new problems.
Yeah.
The question is, the issue is we all have to deal with it on a personal level.
Yes.
And we all have to learn from it. It's not like genetic where if my father mastered it, now I'm never going to worry, right? Like that's not a thing. So, I mean, there's all kinds of medical stuff involved in there, obviously, but, this idea that our brains, this is the medical side that I understand, our brains actually like create pathways.
Yes.
And our thinking goes along those pathways. And it takes effort and, sometimes counseling and professionals to help us change those pathways.
Yeah.
And it takes time. I've been working on mine for 4 years.
Time and effort.
Right? I mean, I've been working on it for 4 years and I'm not there yet. And I'm going to keep those goals. And I'm going to keep doing it. But that's what it takes, right? You've got to work it. You've got to intentionally try to change those thinking processes. And it's not easy.
No. And that's what I liked what you said just a little bit ago about what did you learn? Because that's the last thing that Dr. Zaboznik suggests is when you've made your attempt, what did you learn?
Yeah.
Did you learn from this process? And was it effective? And if the answer is yes, well then, okay, now you may have found a way that can help you solve other potential issues when you start to worry.
Absolutely.
If the answer is not, okay, well, then start dissecting that and trying to figure out, okay, did any of it work? If so, what parts? What parts didn't work? What could you do differently? And again, the idea is to problem solve your way out of whatever it is that has caused you to worry about whatever you're worried about.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, it can definitely, if we can find a way to address our worries, our concerns, not that they're fake or that they're not legitimate, because some of them probably can be and might very well be are. But let's work towards a solution to solve it rather than allow it to grow, fester, and become a raging monster that can debilitate, who we are and what we do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I really like this, and
I like the topic. I mean, it's tough, right? Life is tough, and we tend to be very creative and inventive, even if you don't think you are.
Yeah,
we tend to create a lot of those thoughts.
Well,
out of thin air.
I want to pull from something you said at the beginning. And this ties in with Buddhism. And Siddhartha Gautama, known as the Buddha,
right?
He said there's several, they call them the Four Noble Truths, but I like it. He says, 1, life sucks. 2, life sucks because we want stuff. Yeah. 3, if you stop wanting stuff, life will get better.
Yeah.
And I kind of, to me, that rings true and has some value in some of the ways that I see things, and it's kind of like, look, stop wanting.
Yeah, and I mean, that's tough because as we grew up, right, like the 80s was material. Right?
Yes.
That was all material, and it's been since then. So,
yeah,
it's tough.
But anyway.
It's tough, but happiness isn't found in stuff or money or any of those things.
No.
Right? I mean, I truly believe that when we can control our thoughts and our bodies, that we can feel happier.
To quote one of our former guests that we had on, many, many months ago, our lawyer, Charlie Phillips, he said, happiness is not in stuff. Happiness is in relationships.
Yeah.
So, and I have to absolutely agree on that.
I would 100%.
Well, that's all I got. We've worked through Zaboznik's posting. So I say farewell. I'm Rod.
I'm Scott.
See ya.
Bye-bye.